This demonstration shows how to nest parts with seam angles locked on the seam of the pipe. So here I have a part. I'll turn on the seam. Let's take a look at the design, get a little bit more information on it. Here we can see we're at 0 on the seam. I'll bring this seam around to 45 degrees. And that's not enough. If I just specify it as 45, it won't be locked onto the seam unless I check match pipe seam here. Okay, so once you've specified that, then all your scheduled parts will be locked onto the seam of the pipe. And I'll do that for all of these as well. I've actually already done this, and they're at different seam angles throughout the parts. You can see this one's at a different location. And now I'll go over to my pipes. I'll edit this nesting, and I will auto nest this. And because these parts have their seams locked such that they have to be on that seam, the seams are on the pipe seam angle, which is shown in orange. Okay, now just by way of demonstration, I will take one of these parts, and this one I will unlock the seam angle so it doesn't matter about the nesting. So now I will go back to the nesting, clear the pipe, and now I'll auto nest again. And now you can see that these parts that were no longer locked to the seam went wherever was best for the nesting. Here's an example of a pressure vessel with a seam angle specified currently at 0. 0 goes right through all these holes, so let's move it around. In this case, this could have been done by the CAD operator when he imported the data as well. So I'll bring that around to 135. Now we can see it's down here and not interfering with anything. Okay, now I'll go over to the nesting. Here is a pipe that it'll fit on, so we'll edit this nesting. I've scheduled 2 of these parts to go on this pipe. Right now I have seam angle set to 0, and I nest this way. I can just put my seam angle right at the top, set my zeros, and hit auto nest, and it'll fit these 2 parts on, and it will rotate them so that those seam angles will line up correctly. Note that, bringing up some extra data here, that it can flip apart as well. So this part was flipped. If I don't want that flipped, I can just go into manually edit and turn it around, go back out of that, and then I can hit bump parts again, and it'll realign the seam angles. They're at 0. Now if you want to operate the machine such that the holes are at the exact same location as in your drawing, so you can kind of monitor the behavior of the machine, you can put this at the same seam angle as the pipe. And given they're not flipped, this is going to make some sense. I'll go ahead and bump the parts, and now you'll see that everything is lined up according to the way you would be looking at it in the drawing. Finally, I'll show you how to take a look at where your wheels will bump when the pipe is actually rolling on the machine. The designer may have said the seam angle needs to go at 135, but when it finally comes time to cut it, the operator may want to avoid having any bumping of the machine over seam angles when they're cutting holes. So first they can measure the distance of the wheels apart. Let's say in this case they're 24. And then the roller wheel diameter is 8 inches. Make it a lot more transparent. Now you can see the seam is up here, and these are the 2 points where when the seam goes down and hits those wheels right there, this will be one bump point, and that will be another bump point. And then the operator can move the seam around if they want to avoid anything specific. They can just change this seam angle here and then re-bump, and everything will line up on the seam angles. There you go. I've got pretty much clearance all the way around now.